My name is Donato and welcome back to my channel, where in this video I'll be taking you through a race review of my first ever 70.3 Ironman. So let's go. A very warm welcome back to my channel, and firstly, before I go into my race review of that first ever 70.3 Ironman, I've got to give a massive thank you to each and every one of you who've commented here on my YouTube channel and left such amazing comments, but also on other social media channels, comments, messages, direct messages. It's been absolutely amazing, overwhelmed really with the positivity and support, and for some reason this swan here wants to follow me. I don't know why. Maybe it's to do with their baby over there, but anyway, I digress. Yeah, they're quite protective of their territory, and quite rightly so. But anyway, hopefully it won't jump out of the canal and chase me. Anyway, yes, thank you everybody for the amazing support. So let's crack on. Oh, in terms of the format for this video, because some people want to jump and skip to whatever, but I know a lot of you just watch through the whole thing, so enjoy this review, because I'll be going through in the order that I did do the race, which is the swim and the bike and then the run, and then I'll give you a quick summary and some recommendations and tips maybe if you're considering taking part in a 70.3 or maybe the full 140.6 Ironman. Yeah. Woohoo. The first part of every triathlon, yeah, is the swim. And for me, the swim, I thought it was my weakest, well, in my opinion, it's my weakest of the three disciplines. And as you may recall, a few weeks before the actual race, I did have a panic attack, cold shock, whatever you want to call it, when I was out on my first practice open water swim, which didn't bode well, to the point where on the Monday when I was doing my swim session in a pool, I had another panic attack in the pool and couldn't really do the training. So somehow I'd got extremely fearful of the water, and yeah, there's a history there, and that weekend, race weekend, it was, I don't want to scare you guys, but I'm just giving you some facts. There was 6 people died in England over that weekend, not at the race, over England, different areas in open water, because there's this thing called cold shock, that when you get into water, as nice as this looks, if I was to jump into there, even if I had a wetsuit on, you get a cold shock. And if you're not prepared for that, which unfortunately for those people, you know, it happens. But for me, thanks, I did message a lot of people asking for helps, hints, tips on my coach channel and everything. And I was asking, what can I need to do? Because also when I came out of the water, I was shaking, shivering, which is not a good condition to be in if you want to get changed and get into your bike gear and go on a bike ride, you know, for a few hours. So there was all that preparation that I needed to do. But when it came to race day, and I'd managed to overcome some of those, there were still those fears, but the buzz and the atmosphere, and we were all sort of packed in like sardines, shall we say, at the start in the funnel. But the best thing for me, that was at the actual start itself, once you know you get into the line and you're ready to go into the water. It was a progressive start, so morning, and so staggered start, whatever you want to call it. So it was one at a time going into the lake, and they had a beep, and it was very, you know, very well organized. And so basically the guy would signal you that a machine would beep. I think it was every 15 seconds or 20 seconds, however it was a fair bit of time. Next swimmer goes in, beep, next swimmer goes in. So, you know, however many seconds it was. So I knew there was clear water. I had my strategy of not following the race line because I'm not a quick swimmer, but I went in with the seed that I believed I could do the swimming, or aspirational, shall we say. So, because based on my swim times, I think I was averaging about 2:10, 2:20, 2 minutes 20 per 100 meters. So not the fastest. Anyone who knows anything about swimming, it's not the fastest, but I was aspirational. So I wanted to, there was the 35-minute swim group, and the first group had gone off at 7 a.m. and our group, I think I got in the water at about 20 to 8, so a good 40 minutes since the start. And obviously the quick guys had already finished, got on their bikes, and they were off before I was even in the water. But it's almost like a build-up to get into the water, and there was quite a build-up. But for me, I knew I needed to get in and just get into a routine, relax, and as Mark Hatton had said, was race calm. One of his mantras he said to me is race calm. So I knew I needed to stay calm and not panic when I entered the water, because I knew I'd get the cold shock. Yeah, so it was just to remain calm and just keep going, and I did. I entered the water nice and slowly got into my stride, stroke, whatever you want to call it, and it felt good. And the strategy was head for the first buoy or buoy, however people call it. And oh, my arm's aching carrying it that way. So head for the first buoy, 400 meters, and then do a left turn, and then head to the next one, which seemed like in infinity and beyond. But the in terms of pace, and so it was just keep swimming and swimming. And I thought, this is going really well. And one of my fears was being jostled and bustled by other people. And I thought, this is going really well. And obviously I spoke too soon, because no sooner as I thought that is I felt a bump or a nudge on my left side, and I sort of breathed on that side. So as I brought my head back in to breathe, I brought my head into the water, and I could see these 2 feet right in my face. I thought, whoa, where did they come from? And I sort of stopped, looked up, and it was a guy just swimming right past me at speed. Yeah, so that was the first sort of incident. Managed to get to the second big buoy, again, turned a left, and then the next one, turn a left, and then it was like the home straight, where there was a right turn at the very end. And this is where it got a bit tricky for me anyway. So I'm swimming away, and I could suddenly see a lot of other swimmers appearing, who I was passing, and I thought, this is a bit odd. And somehow I managed, as I was maybe I was picking up the pace, I don't know, or they were tiring, whatever. And this is when the sort of next sort of major incidents come up, where I'm swimming away, and all of a sudden I felt a bump, not just from me left but also right, and I looked up, and I'd been sandwiched by 2 people. I looked up, and there was, and fair play to the organisers, there was a hell of a lot of kayaks, lifeguards all around the course, and they're looking for the dangers before it happens, and they could obviously see this coming. And there was literally a kayak by me, and I looked up thinking, what is going on? But the guy checked I was okay, and I just swam round those 2 people. They were going much slower than me, went past, turned a right, came out the water, and I felt such elation and joy to have got out of that lake. And I literally swam the whole 1900 meters, apart from those 2 little bumps, non-stop, and I felt fantastic. And from then on, it just, the whole race, that sort of set for me, that I was like smiling from ear to ear. And I think the pictures, I haven't paid for the pictures yet, but I might fish those out. Did you get that? Fish those out. And you can see the joy on my face of coming out of that swim. I felt fantastic. I felt on top of the world, as the song goes. And a bit of Sweet Caroline, but more about that when I come to the bike. So that was the swim, came out, and it seemed a long run to get to the first transition. And I got changed there. I did have some fiddly bits with the wetsuit, and I sort of misplaced one of my socks, so that slowed me down, and I needed a pee stop as well before I got on the bike. So all of that contributed to a very slow T1, and got on my bike and was ready to go, and felt really good. So onwards with the bike. Yeah. So after that epic swim, I'm on my bike. Yes, finally on my bike after the transition P-stop, getting on, going. And but as soon as I was coming out of transition, my top tube bag had slipped off. I'd clearly not put it on properly, so I had to stop and put that on properly, and then work my way down to the mounting point, or whatever it's called, where you're allowed to get on your bike. And then off we went out of Chasewater and onwards with the, what is it, 90 kilometers, 56 miles, and the sunshine. And the clear strategy for me was all about fueling, hydration, and I'd put my sun blocker on factor 50 all the way. You know, there was no substituting that, so maybe that slowed me down a bit as well in transition one, where I was creaming myself up, shall we say, with all the sun cream. So I'd had my factor on there, and yeah, the bike ride, I do love cycling. You may have seen last year's video where I'd done my longest ever bike ride, sort of just for fun, a bit of touring, and it was over 200 miles. Interestingly enough, on a very hot day as well. I think that reached like 37 Celsius that day in Cambridgeshire. But this particular bike ride, I felt really good. But from the off, as soon as I was on my bike, there was people passing me all the time, and I thought, okay, I've come off the swim really good. But the bikes these guys had, and I know that Colin and a number of other people and some professional triathletes have commented about the wheels that you've got on the bike, the frame, you know, if it's a TT frame and all that. And also I do appreciate that whilst that is a major factor, it's the fitness and bike skills as well, and I'll talk about that more towards the end in terms of recommendation. But if you are thinking of doing a triathlon, you don't need a fancy bike, just any bike will do. But I did notice that the ones that were passing me were all on these like turbocharged bikes, but obviously the guys are fit as well on these bikes. And but yeah, it was just a case of head down and keep going, very undulating. The first sort of 10k was extremely technical, narrow lanes, lots of sharp drops and dips. But having been on the course, the benefit of me knowing the course is I knew the danger sections, and no surprise, the first sort of danger section, literally coming out of Chasewater, there was an accident there. I didn't see the accident, but there was people who'd fallen off on the speed bumps. It is a bit sharp, bumpy, and people often get a bit over enthusiastic at the start. And yeah, so there's an accident there. And then there's one bit where there's like a couple of sharp drops and then ups, but there was one where you do a sharp drop and then there's like a sharp upward left and very steep ascent. And if you haven't got the right gear, right traction, it just falls apart. And literally, as I was going down there, bizarrely enough, I had a guy overtake me on that section, which I found extremely dangerous. And but I turned, slowed down, braked, was prepared for the sharp left and upward. And then as I turned, there was like a sea of cyclists in front of me who were all walking and got off because they'd slipped gears, dropped chains, all sorts. And I just slowly pedaled my way up the hill past them all and continued. So that was one of the other earlier danger sections, but it was undulated. Once I got on the main roads, big roads, it was literally just foot down, and I absolutely loved that bike ride. I stopped at both aid stations, which might have been another reason slowing me down, but I was drinking so much fluids. The 2 litres that I had on me on the bike was nowhere near enough. I think I got through 3.5 litres. So at every aid station I'd filled up with the extra water, and I had sachets of energy, which you know, I'll talk about another video in terms of the nutrition that I was taking on. But so I had to open up these sachets, mix it in. I was getting some interesting looks from the marshals, thinking, what's he putting in there? I said, oh, you know, it's just white powder, don't worry about it, mate. And yeah, so I mixed that up again. That took time to mix up and so on, so you could say I was losing time on the bike there, but just kept going. But the fun part started when we came to Cannock Chase, the mountain stage of the race. It was tough, and that's where I really did see, because obviously it's coming towards the end of the bike ride as well. If you haven't got your nutrition right and you start bonking on those hills, it's tough. And I could see a lot of guys, they were literally walking up those hills off the bike, and yeah, it was tough, but we kept moving, kept going, and again, more undulating sections towards the end on the bike, but it just kept going and going. Morning, ladies. Just kept going and going, and I just knew I was on for a good time. But the funniest thing is I'm coming towards the section, so there was crowds in Stafford obviously building up. I'm heading towards where I need to dismount on the bike, and I was feeling, you know, amazing again, because I knew I was coming to my strongest part, which is the run. So I'd got out the two what I call maybe worst parts of my disciplines, and was really looking forward to the run. But boy, I wasn't prepared for what was coming. But I got to the section where you dismount, and I'd seen the guy, and he'd got there quite ahead of me, but for some reason he wasn't moving. And when I got to the point where you dismount, and there's a big clear sign you have to dismount, and if you don't dismount there, if you carry on your bike, you get disqualified, or you have to do a time penalty or whatever. I got off my bike, and this guy wasn't moving it whilst he was to the side. I got off my bike, and I kid you not, as soon as I got off, I got to stop. I literally just fell down thinking, oh, what happened to my legs? Now, you may, for those who do triathlon, you may have heard of the phrase jelly legs. I didn't have jelly legs. I had no legs. I couldn't stand up, and it took me a while, so I could hear some of the marshals saying, keep moving forward, keep moving forward. And I'm thinking, I can't move, never mind move forward. Anyway, eventually I got moving, went round, and because obviously by now there's a bit of a blockade, shall we say, at the people dismounting and getting held up. But I walked around, mounted my bike, and then picked up my bag in T2, got changed. And this one was a lot quicker, because it was literally just take the shoes off, put my hat on, re-cream myself, sun cream, because obviously I'd been on the bike for a little over 3 hours, and I needed more sun cream. It was getting hotter. I could really feel the heat. I needed a loo stop at that point, but there was queues at the loo, and I thought, let's just keep going. And so I'll get on to the run bit now, as that was quite a bike section, but I loved every minute of that. Absolutely loved it. So the third and final part of the triathlon. Yeah, you're still with me, you're still with me. Fantastic. The run part. And as you heard, getting off that bike, I knew I was in trouble then, and I've never experienced anything like that. Whilst I had done a triathlon last year, my legs were nowhere near like that when I came off the bike last year. So I don't know what happened or whatever, but you know, I'll do some review analysis or check a few things. And but yeah, I started the run, and immediately, as you guys know, the run is my strong point. And once I got the legs moving ish, but they just felt incredibly uncomfortable. If I was to give you some extra, and I know people on social media do give that bit of extra, they'd say pain and hurt and all that, but for me, I'll just call it extreme discomfort. Yeah, because if it was painful, I wouldn't have been running. Yeah, if it was absolute pain, I would have started walking. But I managed to keep the legs ticking over, and yes, as with other events, I'm passing people immediately, and so you could say the race was on, but so was the heat. I managed to get through the first section, so it's 2.5 loops, so I was approaching up to my first half loop, and I could hear some steps behind me, because I'd been passing people all the way, but I could hear steps behind me. I thought, ooh, who's this cheeky bugger coming up behind me? How dare they pass me? You know, that's not in the script. But And this guy passed me like I wasn't even there. Well, you know, he passed me at relative speed. And it was at the point where there's two sections. There's one where you go out and head out for the big loop around Stafford, and then there's one bit where you turn right to go to the finish line. This guy was turning right to go to the finish line. Yeah, that's right, yeah, he was finishing and I was just starting my half marathon. So that's how quick that guy was. But hey, you know, there's a lot of professionals on the course, so I guess he was one of those. Yeah, I'll just put that down there. But I'm off now out doing this loop, and I'm really struggling getting my legs turning, moving over. I'm also dying for a pee, thinking, when am I going to see a Portaloo? And there just didn't seem to be any Portaloos forever. And I kept stopping at the aid station saying, where's the toilet? Oh, just keep going. Eventually I found, I said, oh, there's one over there. Went inside, and it was like, to say it was like an oven would be an understatement. I got in there, quickly done me pee, but I stepped out and I was like, I'd melted inside there. And I don't know whether that had an impact on me or not. But literally every, without exception, every aid station, I would stop, drink water, and put water over my head or in my cap and put that back on my head. Every one of them. I wasn't running past any of them. I'd stop at them, walk through, drink, and just keep going. And the infamous castle part of the route, you know, I tried to run up part of it, and I got up to a certain point and the legs just didn't want to move. So that was the part where, yeah, walked up the hill along with everyone. I think there was one guy out of the whole 2 loops that I'd done over the castle, one person who ran past us, and I don't know where he was getting that energy from, but I saw him on one part where he'd ran, I don't know what loops, however many loops he was on or behind, but it just got so hot. It was excruciating, and I knew it was just survival mode, and because it's a looped course, you're sort of feeling you're passing the part where you got to go back out again or turn to finish. You're thinking, oh, I just want to finish, man. But you just knuckle down and keep drinking, moving on. I was popping a few gels, but that it didn't appear to be doing much for me. I didn't feel as though it was doing, but it must have done, because I kept running, and yeah, it was just one of those things where you just kept going. The time that I finished in, I think it's 1 hour 53, my slowest ever half marathon, but I've never ran in those conditions, and I've certainly not ran that, as I say, my first Ironman off that. It was just the heat, energy sapping. Despite that time, I still think I came in the top 200 out of the 1300 that had started. So clearly, you know, everyone is suffering, so everyone's times were markedly slower, but in terms of performance. But for me, I just felt great to get to the finish, because that run up and the carpet and the crowds, it just feels incredible. And people commented on the clip where at the finish I looked fresh and that, and yeah, I felt amazing, because you get that rush of adrenaline. And to finish, for me, it felt like a pinnacle of all that time and effort, and I really did enjoy the training, because for me it's that whole process, and that race at the end on that Sunday, that's like the cherry on the cake, and words aren't enough to describe how amazing that felt. I mean, I've said on one of the social medias, I'll probably do, because I'm thinking about this, I'll probably do another ebook of my first ever 70.3 Ironman, because there's so much I want to share and say. This, you know, this video doesn't do it enough justice in terms of the thoughts that had gone through in my head, and it's easy often to write it down or whatever. Oh, I don't do any script, you know, there's no bits of paper or anything I've got here. I'm just doing this straight from the bat. Oh, by the way, do you like my finisher shirt? Yes, I finished. It felt great. There's not enough words, and all the people that that I saw before the start, some people coming up, tapping me and say, hey Donato, they'd recognise me from here or other social channels. But also at the finish, where I was sitting down near the finish line just eating my pizza, lots of guys and gals coming up to me, chatting. It was great. I just felt amazing, and I'm just so happy to be here, being able to share this with you. And there's just a few hints, tips I'd like to go in summary now about the whole thing. So yes, in conclusion, what can I say? Hints, tips and all that jazz. In conclusion, all I can say, I absolutely loved it. I can't say enough in terms of recommendations for that Ironman brand event, the 70.3 Staffordshire. If you want to have a go, enter and do it. But my key tip, and it'll be obvious, yeah, don't think you got to go out and buy some fancy bikes, by the way. If you can't swim, you do need to learn to swim. I know that sounds bleeding obvious, but again, you don't need to be an out and out Olympic athlete. I've managed in my modicum of swim to get into a pattern, and to swim within the cut-off time is reasonable for any swimmer to, I believe, to do that. As it's just about having the confidence in the open water, and that's the key strategy on there. But my key tip is, if you're going to do a triathlon or don't make a 70.3 as your first one. You know, have a go at the shorter distances and get used to the, you know, the swim, the changing, getting on the bike, and then the running, the jelly legs, no legs, whatever you want to call it. Try the shorter distances first. I would definitely recommend that. For me, being an endurance athlete and enjoying my marathons, I've got that endurance fitness up there that enables me to do these. I'm not belittling my efforts or whatever, because it's still incredible training. I mean, some of the weeks it was, as you've seen through the progressive weeks of training, it's damn exhausting. You know, 14-15 hours of training, of the swim, bike, run. I only have one rest day, Friday, but every day I would be doing some form, and some days doing two exercises, the cycling and the running. And it's tough, but for me, by having done all that training, it's enabled me to recover, because here I'm filming this now on the Friday after one, so I've had 5 days of recovery. And yeah, I'm still recovering. I had an easy 45-minute run yesterday, and it felt great because I'm now starting to prep for my next race, Berlin Marathon. Yeah, but the key tips is the bikes. Have whatever bike, you know, you don't need to splash out 5,000, 10,000 or whatever, or go on eBay and spend 2,000 or 3,000 on one of these fancy TT bikes, secondhand, whatever. There's a friend of mine, Ian O'Donnell, who does a lot of triathlons. He's a cyclist, a very avid cyclist, does lots of distance. He does triathlons in a standard steel bike, yeah, and he finishes way within the, you know, he finishes them easily for himself. So he's an established cyclist. It's all about fitness, skill, bike skills, and getting into right form, shall we say. And then when it comes to the running, it's, I don't think, and again, if there's any experienced triathletes out there, leave it in the comments below. I don't think there's, you can get your body used to being on a bike and then getting off and running. I don't think you can train jelly legs or whatever, but the joys of technology. Something happened there, as it does with these SD cards and GoPros and whatever. But anyway, as I was saying, where did I get to, is the key tips is, you don't need a fancy bike. Any bike will do. A standard road bike, perfect. Swimming, yeah, learn to swim, get a wetsuit, get used to that. And as for the running, well, as I was saying, I don't know if you can train for jelly legs or whatever. Maybe there's some kind of tips, tricks that people can do to get your muscles to reactivate or move in a certain way. But all I can say is, for me, my experience, the whole experience from the official training started in January of this year to now, it's been absolutely amazing. I've loved every minute, every single minute of it. The race itself, it couldn't have been better. You know, apart from the weather, we can't do the weather's the weather. I look forward to one day taking part in an event, a race, where I can race where it's not either extremely hot or cold. And if you've seen my race videos, I think there hasn't been a race where it hasn't been any of those, I wouldn't say extreme weather. For me, extreme is a bit of extreme word, but yes, Sunday was extremely hot. But some of the other marathons haven't been extremely cold, apart from Boston, which was extremely cold. You know, the Chicago and New York weren't cold, but you know, the weather wasn't the best of weathers. But you race through it. That's all part and parcel of the experience. But for me, Staffordshire 70.3 Ironman is a massive thumbs up. Loved it. And maybe, you know, 5 days. A number of people said do allow at least a week. I know some people, especially in running, is you tend to book an event almost straight after or whatever, or even before. But I'm having a good think. Do I do 70.3 Staffordshire again next year? I don't know. There's plenty of other 70.3s. I'll look at some other brands as well. I think Outlaw is another one that's been mentioned. So I'll have a look at those. But I did love the triathlon experience. It's brilliant. It's almost as if now I'm getting into training for Berlin. Hopefully, you know, I don't want to, those famous last words, but having raced marathons, I've done what, 12, 13, 14, however many marathons, dozen marathons, and that 70.3, without a shadow of a doubt, that 70.3 physically and mentally was the toughest thing, much tougher than a marathon. So you could say that a marathon will be a walk in the park. Famous last words. But you still got to put the training in, and I'm going to put the training in now for Berlin and get ready. Fingers crossed that'll be. I look forward to the next video where I'll be talking to you about options, Berlin, London, what to go with. But all I can say is thank you so much to getting to the end of this video. It's been a long one, a long journey, as they say, and one that I've absolutely loved. And here I am along the Calder Valley in West Yorkshire, catching up with some old friends I've not seen in a while, and hopefully maybe catch up with some of you guys out on the real world. So thank you. Till next time, leave the comments below. I look forward to seeing you all soon. Bye.